Hey, welcome to Taylor's Trick Taking Table. I'm Taylor, and it is Soft-Timber on the channel. That's right, we are soft launching still the Kickstarter for Zoo and More, the wonderful, wonderful, wonderful game compendium mix that I'm doing with a ton of amazing people in the community. So artists, designers that I absolutely have loved working with. It is really, really labor of love, all these projects. But I've realized I haven't really talked about what it is. What is Zoo and More? So we're going to do kind of like a behind the scenes, a good overview of it all, kind of explaining what is in the game, ideas behind it, kind of an ethos, some design kind of mindsets that the whole project was in. I feel like I'm throwing a lot of buzzwords, but kind of overall, just what is Zoo and More is what part of this video is going to be about. And then, if you remember from last week, we covered like a million games. It was Short Zoot Suit, Somnia, Idle Hands, Reapers, and Sakana Stack. But there was another hidden one that we mentioned. Well, it was Man Eating House that we are going to be covering. This is the final of the new Mill games coming out, and it is designed, I should say, by Kunihiko Tsuchiya, and it is the hook is it's like a lot going on. I think I should lead with the theme, and I don't know if you can tell by the name in the cover there, but it's about the theme is like a horror movie incarnate. So there's ghosts and kids fighting ghosts and creepy locations and weapons, but there's a lot of if this then that. So like if two kids are together, they can escape unless they're in a dangerous location or unless there's weapons. There's a whole thing. So I guess that's the hook. But we will cover that. So this is the last one to cover, and that will be like a full teach, because we haven't covered it on the channel. It's the only one on the channel of those 4 that we have not covered, so that'll be fun. But yes, first, I think I'm going to have to regale what Zoo and More is. So before I teach Man Eating House, join me on the couch as I explain what Zoo and More is. All right, see you over there. Hey, here we are. So I lit the candle, and I'm, surrounded by games and hats. My kind of my groups of hats here, and we have a nice cozy vibe going to talk about Zoo and More. So Zoo and More started as the parts that became, some of its parts of Zoo and More, where I designed Short Zoot Suit. It originally was for the Rook design challenge, and I created a game just about short suiting with the Rook deck, and that became, oh hey, this works for a standard deck, so I can just make it for a standard deck. And then I made Of What's Left, and I was thinking like, this can just work if I just make it standard deck, and I became obsessed with standard deck games just as a way to let anyone play it around the world. Like I'm a big proponent of just, if you see a design and you want to try it out, like, go make it, go see if you'll like it at all. And so then having a few standard deck designs on my hands, I was like, wow, this would be super cool to have just a group of standard deck designs, like a kind of compendium of sorts. And I've always loved Mew and More, and Mew and Lots More, and like that idea of bringing together a bunch of fun, wacky designs. So that idea was just in my head for a while, and I started designing even more standard deck games and coming up with different designs that fit that standard deck. And then I was talking to a friend, Mason, who did the 5th metagame on the project through the Zoo, which we'll be covering later. And they were like, I have this idea that combines playing a bunch of standard deck games all as this one big game. And everyone just needs their own standard deck, and you can play it. And I thought this was such an amazing idea, and it kind of fit with where I was thinking in terms of like collecting a lot of standard deck games. So I was like, what if there's a package that had, 4 standard deck in and of themselves, and games in and of themselves, and then they were, use to combine into a metagame. So that concept was just like in my head, and I ended up, designing or co-designing with wonderful people in the hobby, different standard deck games. And it's fun how like a lot of the different designs are, and I'll get more into detail like maybe in a week or two when I cover like Chai Tea Jazz, but each one has their own kind of design idea. Like for example, Chai Tea Jazz was more in line of how Sean Ross designs, where it takes an older game and like revamps it for a modern audience and adds a lot of fun gameplay hooks that I think offer more choice and more decisions and more like a modern kind of design mindset. And so those different games were coming together really nicely, and then the metagame was coming together, and so I settled on 4 solid designs, and then the metagame was going to be included. And the interesting thing was, I didn't want just standard deck games, or like how do I rephrase that? I wanted standard deck games that work with standard deck, but also could work with more. So like variants, or something that added to the standard deck. And in addition to that, added to the standard deck in different ways. So I hope I'm explaining this right. But so there's 4 games in Zoo and More, each standard decks. But in addition to that, they either have variants or alternative ways to play or deck makeups that add something. So for example, Short Zootsuit, which I covered, has multi-suited cards. So you can replace the kings in the game with these multi-suited kings, which have to fall suit. And there's since it's a short suiting game, there's some interplay there with some suit play. So it was like the idea of a standard deck, but then also some of the cards had multi-suits. And for Chai Tea Jazz, the game definitely works standard deck, but it also has extra cards, so you can play. The original game was based on Kofur Yas, because it has a full Yas deck inside. So just including, I think, 12 or so extra cards will allow it to be a normal Yas deck. So things like that, like making sure every deck was special and different. And the Hodgepodge Dodgeball has jokers. These other ones don't have jokers, so it's the only deck with jokers. I guess that's special enough. And then Bughouse is a very long deck, so it's standard deck for sure, but it goes not just Ace or 1 to 13, but also 0 to 15. So that's an extended deck. So I love that idea of like every deck was standard deck, so you can play the metagame. Every deck was its own different game with own art and everything. And then on top of that, every deck was different. So a Yas deck, an extended deck, a Joker's deck, and then like a multi-suited deck. So that was kind of the idea, a lot of wackiness to that. And then also just like working with a ton of people in the community. So Sean, I've looked up to for a super long time. I love his design. I've personally designed like thematic games or games that are trying to be kind of like Japanese style design, where it's like a hook in the scoring, a hook in the gameplay. That's like Short Zootsuit kind of ideas. And then Sean's, where he again like modernizes games. I wanted Chai Tea Jazz to be that. And working with him on that, and working with Chris Siepel, who is another co-designer on that, have just been absolutely amazing. That's the most I've ever done in terms of like co-design, and so that's been really fascinating. A lot of my designs, just because they're wacky ideas that I come up with, have been solo, so that's been really, really fun. And speaking of co-designs, work with Daniel, DJ Kennel. That one was fascinating because it was like his kind of idea, and then we worked on it together, and then brought on as a co-design. So it's been really interesting because this project has been almost every type of game design for me. And then on top of that, like Mason's game, I developed. So there's a lot of like every aspect of design and development in this. And in addition to that, so one of the artists is Sai Beppu, who also did Of What's Left. It's just absolutely amazing. Just like love her art. So fortunate to have her art, and her kind of like aesthetic has been one that, since I've been in trick taking specifically, has been so important, and so it means so much to me that she's a part of it. And then in addition to that, it's funny, it's like how like design and development, I was saying, has kind of all the facets. Art similarly. So I forgot I was wearing 2 hats. with the art. So the site Beppu was, friend, and I asked, and then we chatted, and then she made it, and then it was, was part of Tokyo Game Market and that whole thing. And then for another artist, Catherine, who's amazing, that was from a friend I was playing at. I go to the T whatever series with James Nathan off in Cincinnati, and that series I play with somebody named Dustin, and we were playing a lot of trick-taking games, and he was talking about how he has he works with someone who's just absolutely amazing, and I met her, and then she did the art for Bughouse and Hodgepodge Dodgeball. So it's just so fun to like meet people different ways and have connections in the community. And then the last one, Blue, I reached out to because I just loved her art for she did a lot of like Totoro, maybe I'll put it up here, designs. So it feels, in an interesting way, it feels all very different. Every game feels very personal, but like a equally community based. And then last but not least, I reached out to Emmy, the amazing Emmy, who was one of the first people I met on Discord and was just like getting to play games on Discord. And if you go back to even just like one of the original videos, the very early Jekyll versus Hyde, I remember I was really excited to play, and I didn't have my copy yet, and I went on BGA and I was playing, and it was with her, and like randomly we got to playing, but we like had known each other through Discord, so it was just like this really funny thing. Anyway, so I reached out to her to do the icon. So for Gotcha Gotcha Games, she did the logo work, and last but not least, I'm on there for graphic design because I learned Adobe Illustrator and Photoshop and some other word, InDesign, I don't know. So a lot of the graphic design is me. So it's been really wild. It's been really wild to do this whole project and look at it from so many different levels. I'm in communication right now with Panda, the manufacturer. It's fun to do so many different aspects of the project and have it mean so much and feel like every detail is just kind of like crafted. I am just like so beyond excited. So sorry for waxing poetic, but it means a lot in terms of the people I worked with this on, the different types of designs, because in addition to aesthetically looking different with the art, a different design process, I try to make the games themselves be very different. So Bughouse Millionaire is literally like a 4-5 minute game at most. It's an incredibly short game. And then conversely, Chai Tea Jazz is based on Kofur Yas, which is the original game. Kofur Yas is a 3 to 4 hour game. Whoo! It's like the longest trick taking game ever. We have video on it if you want to learn about that one. But Chai Tea Jazz, once you have played it before and it's a little understood to you, is usually around like an hour. Obviously you can customize it and make it longer, and we'll get into that later in the next video for Chai Tea Jazz. But I just think it's so interesting that player count wise, because Chai Tea Jazz does 2 to 4 and also 6 player, it's huge. And time wise, it's huge. I guess comparatively, if you compare it to old classic games, it's actually kind of short. Like an hour long game is like people play Scott or Doppelkopf or Kofur Yas for like hours, right? And that's kind of the feel of that game. It's supposed to be kind of like a sit down and play, kind of like a night. You're doing it for a night kind of vibe. But so then you have that game, and then all the way to like Bughouse, which is like again like a 5 minute kind of timed game. Yeah, I just wanted to have that feeling of aesthetically different, gameplay different, different people on it. Definitely like this community group collection of sorts. So that's the idea behind Zoo and More. Sorry that took a while. There's, I guess, a lot to say. In addition, like every game name is 3 words. So Short Suit, Hodgepodge Dodgeball, Chai Tea Jazz, Zoo and More. The meta game's called Through the Zoo. I love those little things. And like every game has like jokes in the naming, which I'll maybe get into. I just love like focusing on every single detail, writing the theme to it all, and like writing the rule books and making them very consistent between the two, or all 5 games really. Yeah. Anyway, I think I'm just rambling now. The whole system, the whole Zoo and More product is just wacky ideas collected in a wacky idea, and I hope I hope you enjoy it. We've absolutely loved making it, and it's something, I mean, I don't want to speak for everyone, but I'm personally extremely proud of. So, yeah, check it out. It's a link in the description. And yeah, launching October 1st. It's going to be so much fun. So, whew, yeah, next week is probably Chai Tea Jazz. And then we're probably going to cover Hodgepodge Dodgeball and Bughouse Millionaire later on, and Through the Zoo later on. So, as we go off of Softember, into October, where we're actually launching, we'll be covering, you know, more of the games. So, yeah, stay tuned. Thanks so much for watching, especially if you made it to this point. And I guess you're about to go learn how to play Man-Eating House, so let's dim the lights and get spooky. The deck in Man-Eating House is 3 suits, and they're a little bit different deck makeups. So they all have 1 through 14. The middle suit here only has 1 through 14, but green has an extra 0, the dog, and the red suit has an extra 15, the old man. Man-Eating House is just played over 1 round, so at the very end of the game, the team that collects the most children and ghosts, because those are points in the game, wins. And if there's a tie, it's whoever has the dog. And as you can see here, the deck makeup, like we talked about, has a little bit of variance, but also above them is different types of things. So there's children, ghosts, which are the scoring points. There's little girls, which activate if they're led, part of like passing. And then there's weapons and locations / danger zones. There's also an old man and a dog. Why I am going into that much detail is because this whole game kind of revolves around these specific cards because they trigger things as you play. In fact, just showing this now, a huge part of the game is this kind of flow chart here. Like if a little girl was led, you'll do something. If there's old man, it usually wins unless the dog beats it. There's some dangerous areas, but then there's also events that can transpire. Jumping right into the first trick, Bubbles has the marker there, so she's going to lead to the first trick. Let's say she played this 2 of red. Man-Eating House is a must-follow game. So coming to the fire player there, oh wow, they have to play that card. So then coming to May, she can play whatever she wants. Maybe she'll just play the little girl card, and then coming to this final player here, maybe they play this 14. So you will run through this flowchart for every trick because it is important. Did a little girl lead into the trick? There is a little girl here. There are the 4s, and it's important if they are led because you'll do something special. But in this case, they weren't. So we will skip that. Was a dog played? Was an old man played? No and no. The dog and the old man, again, are the 0 in the green and then the 15 in red. They're not in there. And then we will go down to does a dangerous area appear? Dangerous areas are in the locations, but they're specific locations. They're the ones with this red symbol here. And as you can see, there's 6 in the game, but none of them came out, so we don't do that. So if neither of those happened, or since all the 4s, those 3 little girls did not come out, we're going to skip that. And so now we're down here and it says events. Did any events happen? So there's 2 types of events. There's escapes and fights. Escapes are when 2 children of the same suit are in a trick, or 2 or more. And fights are when there's a ghost, and again, ghosts are these high cards, and a weapon. So as you can see, there's no weapons out here. There is a ghost, but there are 2 kids of the same suit. So we are going to trigger an event here before we go down to highest number wins, and that is going to be an escape event. If, just, running back into this example, say the fire player didn't have any reds and played that, we would not trigger an escape event, and then we would go to the bottom here, and it just says highest number wins. So if this is what it looked like, this would win, and it wouldn't even be because of lead suit. So let's actually do this. So if it looked like that, the fire player would win because 9 is the highest number. If there's ever a tie in highest number, there's a hierarchy, a suit hierarchy, and it starts with red, then it goes, then it goes yellow, then green. But going to what actually happened, where it was 1, and then the 14 was in it, Since we are triggering an event, the kid event is thematically, these kids are meeting up and they're like, let's get out of here. So they will go to the player who played the card as captured and not by the person who would have won. So it's great for Bubbles in this case because Bubbles would have lost this 2 kid to the other team here. And again, the children are points. So Bubbles was happy that they didn't have that happen. So then the trick resolves with the cards that are remaining. So here we are. And the 14 won. So the 14 will capture this trick. And then this bottom player here, the skull, will then lead to the next trick. Jumping ahead to the next trick, now we are going to do the whole flowchart again. There's no old man, it wasn't led with a little girl, there's no dog, there's no dangerous areas, but here we are, where we're back at the events and we check if there's an escape or a fight. There's no escape because these 2 children are on different suits, so they sadly did not help each other escape. But there is a fight, and so what fights are is if, again, within the same suit, there's a weapon and a ghost. So it looks like this chainsaw is helping fight off this wheel monster woman. And so how it works is the highest weapon is going to defeat and capture the ghosts. So if it looked like this, where there were multiple weapons, if we can find another one, into the trick, and maybe this would be a better example, the 7 player would win. The 7 player would take this 12. And if there's only, 1 weapon, obviously, is the highest. So in this case, the 7 player would defeat this ghost and they would capture the ghost. So again, usually it's like highest number. So this was great for, Bubbles again. In addition to capturing the ghost, the weapons are discarded. And so similarly, you would then just evaluate the trick with whatever's left. So in this case, it's the highest number. So this 3 would win the trick and they would capture both these, which is great because these are 2 points, for the end of the game. And the person who played the highest, so May over here, would then lead to the next trick. Jumping to a later trick, going to the flowchart again, no old men, no yada yada yada. So when it comes down to here, as you can see, usually an event would happen because there's a weapon and a ghost, but just before the events, we checked and there is a dangerous area appeared. So you can't fight ghosts with weapons while there's a dangerous area. So then it would not go down there and this wouldn't happen, like this 7 wouldn't capture the ghost and these 2 would get, removed from this trick. We are in a dangerous area, so it actually just goes to high number wins. So then this card would capture these into their score pile. Again, these aren't worth anything. That's the only one that's worth anything. But it's nice because this player set up this player to, with the dangerous area, not get hit by the weapon. Jumping to a later trick, here is a much more simple example. This old man is in it. And so little girl wasn't led, the dog and the old man aren't in it, so the old man is played, so the old man just wins. Just wins no matter what. So that goes to Bubbles. And again, if the dog was in the trick, then it would supersede that. Other than that, though, the dog's kind of the weakest character. So if it looked like this player would win because the dog beats the old man. Again, the flowchart is very important because it goes dog, old man check, then dangerous areas, or if the 3 girls, then the events, and then just highest number at the end there. So last thing to cover is this little girl and what would happen if they all go out. So taking this trick, in that case, I guess went to the dog player. And so then it's their turn to lead. And if they played one of the little girls, that is going to trigger something special. So let's say they did that. The person who plays the little girl will draw the top card from the unopened room. They'll add it to their hand. And then what's important now is everyone is going to place face down a card of the same suit in front of them. And if they don't have a card of the same suit, like in this case, they can place down whatever they want. And so this person does this. And then after they do that, this person doesn't have one, the person who played the 4 is going to choose whether this card, or all the cards that are in front of people, are going to be passed left, right, or across. So this person's looking at this card, maybe they think it's a good card and they want to pass it to their partner, they're going to say across. So they do this, and this person does this, and does this. And now this 4 will stay out there because it's important for the flowchart, which I'll explain later. And then the person who played the 4 will then just lead to the next trick. They could do it again, they could do the 4, draw again, do that whole shebang, and then that would come out there. And if, you know, over the course of the game, I think it was captured, all of the little girls come out like this, there is, because remember this didn't come out, this got actually captured, so there's a possibility where, you know, it won't be lead. So it only gets up here if it's lead. But if all three of them are lead, as you can see on the flowchart here, it says old man, you know, dog old man, yada, yada, yada. It also appears where the little girl is first played, by the way. So then it says after resolving the Kagome, which was what we just did. It's that everyone places, you choose which way to pass, and then after you do that, the person who just did that will, you know, lead to the next trick. But so yes, after that happens, the old man and the dog, dangerous area, it says dangerous area appears, or all three girls are lined up, meaning they're all right here. Then it would just go highest number for the rest of the game. So no more events, no more kids escaping with each other or fights happening. One also really small thing I should note, a dog counts as a kid in terms of like the escaping and the points and such. So that's mostly the flow of the game. Again, this could not happen. You could just keep doing the escapes and the fights and stuff, but you will essentially play out the rest of the tricks. The person or the team who won the final trick will get whatever's left in here. So if they are, you know, ghosts or kids and their points, they'll go to the team. So like this is, you know, 2 points here. And then you're going to count up the points. And whoever has the most points, again, those are children and ghosts, will win. If it's a tie, it's whoever got the dog. And that's how to play 4-player man-eating house. The differences for the 3-player game is that one player will be dealt the old man card, and that's going to be really important because it's whoever plays the old man card is going to be on a team separate than the other 2 players. So say May plays the old man card, now it's going to be May versus Bubbles and the skeleton hand. What's interesting is the other players who maybe don't have it yet or haven't seen it played yet don't know who's on their team. So Bubbles doesn't know if it's Skeleton's going to be on our team or if it's going to be May. And an interesting thing about the game is it could be dealt underneath or it could be passed during the Kagame. So you actually don't know who's on the team, right? Because like let's say May passes the old man to someone else. The old man has to be played into the trick, then the teams would be set. And how the old man player wins is one of 2 things. They either get 11 or more of those, you know, ghosts, children, old man, dogs kind of points, or they get at least 1 of each of the 1, 2, 3 child, regardless of suit. But if neither of those things happen, it's the other players that win. And that's how to play Man-Eating House. So that was Zoo and More and Man-Eating House. Zoo and More was more of just a chat. So do I have final thoughts on something I already essentially gave final thoughts on? I don't. So, because that's all I need to say. I am excited to show off the other games. I cannot wait to do videos for Bug House and Hodgepodge and Chai Tea Jazz and Through the Zoo. Those are all super excited. And there's always something fun covering your own game because you've taught it a million bajillion times. So it's funny to make it final and film a video. It almost feels like you're doing like the final draft before you send off a paper for school. So yeah, thanks if you listen to that ramble. But to Man-Eating House. So this is an incredibly thematic game. Super thematic. You're playing it, I think, for the theme. Because the gameplay and the card resolution and all of that is a lot. And I guess I should say, take this with a grain of salt. Daniel sent me this game here. So yeah, I think there's something to super thematic games where you're like, oh, I can see where the designer, they came to maybe a crossroads, or maybe they wanted this from the start, and they wanted every single decision to be theme first, and have that guide everything. And so that definitely comes through. So when the weapon cards are played and there's ghosts, the weapons kill the ghosts, and then the kids, they get away unless they're in a dangerous location, and then it's obviously worse for them. So weapons won't work, kind of thematic in a horror movie. Like you have the chainsaw, and then you think you're gonna saw the villain, and then chainsaw doesn't work because you're in a dangerous location. So definitely thematic. the little girl, you know, being creepy kind of stops everything. You're like, oh. And then the old man, I guess, coming out, and because it is children, so I could see maybe the theme being a little bit of like, oh, this is kind of happening in the kids' minds, because one of the weapons is like a yo-yo. And then the old person comes out and kind of like saves them or kind of stops them. And the dog scares the old man, or maybe the old man's the creepiest villain. The theme is, it definitely seems like a good amount of like Japanese lore. Like I think like one of these cards I only know as a weapon is like the Omamori. I only know that from Slay the Spire. But essentially, the theme is very, very, very horror movie. Like I think even there's like the well from The Ring, like things like that. And playing it in that mindset has been fun. Just to play it with people who are like, oh yeah, then I used a slingshot to hit the ghost wheel lady. Oh, but it didn't, like on the stairs, right? Oh, but it didn't work the other time because we're in a creepy bathhouse. So that's fun to it, and I think the art and, you know, and the graphic design is nice, and it's a good time. I think, yeah, as like an overall package that wanted to be very themey, definitely works. To the gameplay, and so this is where I don't think the game is 100% for me. I don't love like a lot of if this then that in trick taking, because I think trick taking, I'm not as strict on this because I definitely like games that do something similar, but I do think I like a little bit of like a flow to the game. In this one, I mean, it helps that it's one hand, but this one is very much like, okay, what happened? And then you go through it all. It does get more familiar. So if you play this a lot, it gets more second nature. You get more out of it. You get more subtlety out of it. There's a lot of the phrase like, is the juice worth the squeeze, that goes through my mind when I play this game. There's a lot of squeezing going on. And I think the more you play this, the more you will find more juice. But I think the tough thing for me, and again, this is maybe a more personal thing, I'm someone who plays a lot of different games in a night, and also there's definitely games I play a lot, but for games like this, where I might like pull it out once, you know, maybe around Halloween or something, or like I wouldn't play it too often, there's always like a stutter the first time you play. Like I've never played a hand of this where at least like the first hand or like the first round is only one round. The first game of this in a night, like if you play multiple games in a night, is stuttery. Like it's like, oh, okay, so we do that, but then that happens. Like I think someone said it best when we were playing, where the first game of it, you know, if you're going to play multiple games, it's almost like every trick needs to be discussed, like kind of what happens, especially if you have new players at the table, especially if it's been a while. I do think, I mean, props to the production. The flowchart is great, this production of it, because I did play it back in the day, like 3 years ago or something, with like a printed out piece of paper that described everything, and that was like, ooh! So it is much easier. It's the easiest it's ever been able to be played. But even then, there's a little bit of like hiccupy stuff that does get better. So I guess how to formulate this is like, if this was a game I played once every like 6 months, it's like, oof. If this is a game that I played with the same group of people like a few times in a night, or like maybe regularly, I could see it being more second nature. There's just a lot of, I mean, literally, I guess I could just sum this all up. If you're looking at this flow chart of, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-ish, 6, 7 kind of steps that you have to do, like, you know, every trick. Obviously it gets better, it gets second nature. I think you'll know if you can handle that, if that makes sense. Again, it's pretty simple. It's like, if I had to summarize it, does someone leave a 4? If you let a 4, we're going to do like a passing thing. Is the old man in it? It wins, unless there's the dog. So then that's pretty much it. And then after that, was there a dangerous location? Or if all the little girls are out, then it's just highest number. But then you do just one of 2 events, and that's just like kids, weapons, and ghosts. And then after that, it's just highest number. So yeah, it becomes a little clearer if you play it a lot. It's almost like one thing too many sometimes in a game like this. Like even when like I'm explaining the rules, like how to teach this is a wild one, because you don't want to scare people by the flowchart. And it's like, when do you explain the passing? When do you explain the fighting and the escaping? Like, when do you explain some of the things? And so sometimes when I'm teaching it, like every time I've taught this, you always get that moment where some people are just like, this is too much, you know? Like, there's just a lot added to the game. And again, I think it's very like thematic and there's like some fun theme to it. But this can be a lot for some people. So just keep that in mind. I hope I'm trying to give like a good sense for this game. There are people who love this. There are people who love the if this then that. Like, it almost is like skulking rock, paper, scissors vibes on like a grander scale, if that makes sense. But then all the cards are included. So it's almost like skulking, but you will have everything happen all the time. There's skulking, there's mermaids, there's pirates, there's white flags, there's coins, there's the Kraken that's going to wipe the trick. There's everything in skulking that will happen and is probably going to happen. I think the team play helps because you get that level of like, even though it's kind of wacky, you're like, you can set your partner up or hopefully set your partner up. Like, there's subtle strategies. Like, I don't think it's too random, but it's a lot of like, it's almost like a 10 layered rock, paper, scissors going on here. And you hope that you win more of that than not. For example, you're like, oh, I'll lead a kid, which stinks because it might win. The other person plays high, but then your partner's like, I'll play a kid too, so then we can try to escape. Then like the last player plays in a dangerous room, so you're like, darn, right? And so you're trying to play off that. And like, it's a funny game because there's a lot of wackiness, a lot of flowcharts, but it is predictable hierarchy, and like there's card counting because you're like, oh, it's must follow. So like, did the dangerous location get played, or did all of the dangerous locations get played in this suit? Am I safe to play a kid or safe to play a weapon on that ghost? So again, getting back to the juice and the squeeze, there's juice here, and it's almost like an orange that when you push on the, what are those juicers called that looks like kind of like a knob right here with like ridged edges? A juicer, you get what I'm talking about. It's almost like when you push initially, it's like like the hard, maybe it's a little hard, and you're trying to like really push, and you really gotta push. But once you're in there and you're pushing, you're getting more juice. So it's like a coconut, maybe a little bit of a coconut game. That's what I'll start calling it. It's a coconut game. It's hard to get into, and maybe even if you do crack it and you get a little bit of drips, maybe it won't be for you. Some people don't like hot coconut water, but there are some people who maybe are straight out onto desert island, or no, or there's some people who, you know, they open the coconut, and even if they like more than the water, they're cutting the flesh, they're eating that. That's what I think this is for. So yeah, I think it'll make sense. I think even in that rules teach, once you saw the flowchart, you'll understand if this game's for you or not. I think personally, my lifestyle, my relationship with trick-taking games, where yes, I have a few that I'll play all the time, like I play Hearts constantly, and the Crew, I show that a lot, and games like that. I will get to the table often. I just don't know if I will for Man Eating House. But maybe you will. Maybe Mount Eating House is your Hearts. And I think if that is the case, there's some subtlety, there's some strategy. Like I said, there's some interplay, some card counting, when to play the fours and trigger a pass. And the interesting about the pass is like the person who plays it like chooses, you know, left, right, across. So there's like some kind of mind games there. But there's a lot to the game that you can play into and read into if you want to go down that path. But I think personally, again, I'm a broken record. I don't think this is a path I will be going on. That was Man Eating House. If it sounds interesting to you, I think you will know. I think it's a funny part of reviewing, I guess, anything at all, is sometimes you can just go, even from like how to play it, you're like, did that sound interesting to you? Did it not sound interesting to you? Then that's true. I mean, there are some games that's like, oh, it's like a real-time deck building game or something. That'd be wild. And someone's like immediately turned off, you know, or turned on, turned into it, turned in, like likes it. So similar to that, I think you'll understand if you like this or not, just by the gameplay. So, Man Eating House. There we go. And also, Zoo and More! We're going to get more Zoo and More next week. So, it should be fun. Thanks so much for watching. Hope I didn't repeat myself too much. Editing Taylor has his work cut out for him. Thanks so much, and I will catch you next week. Bye!